Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do another vlog for week 2 of Horror Mayhem. And this is Gothic Horror Week. And this is a event run by the Bookish Bryants with a whole host of co-hosts, including me. And I will list them all in the description below. So, the book I have started for Gothic horror is The Sundial by Shirley Jackson. It was written in 1958. It starts off in a huge, elaborate mansion built by a wealthy man to meticulous detail. And this is the story of them having a funeral where a woman named Halloran, her husband has just died, and they're having the funeral. She believes he has been murdered by his grandmother. He is pushed down the stairs in a wheelchair, and she's gotten her daughter to go around saying Grandma is a murderer. And that's not all. That's a very creepy beginning to this book. But while the mother and daughter are out wandering around the house yard, and they're surrounded by a huge wall to separate Halloran property from other property. The woman has a vision of a coming disaster that's going to end the world, and they have to prepare for this end of the world. And the house, I am losing a bit of count of how many characters. There's going to be 12 people in this house when they're preparing for the end of the world eventually, and it comes to its climax. But as I said, there's a lot of characters. 11 or 12 right now, and it's a little much to keep track of, and it's very speechy. They talk a lot, and a lot of elaborate details of the home. But that's it for the Gothic horror. I'm only 70 pages in out of about 190. So I will be continuing this in the morning. So it's Gothic Horror Week, and I have to admit a slight defeat here. I was reading The Sundial, and I've already done my brief view of the first 70 pages, and that was on a Friday night. But when I got up on Saturday and was getting ready to read, I kept dithering and stalling and reading a page or two and coming to the conclusion that I didn't understand that page. So I went back to read the page and read the page and then went off to dither again. So I decided to DNF this book. If a book's just not working, I just don't have the time to try to force it to work for me. I think in essence, it is a very good novel. It's just, for whatever reason, it's not working. So what I did do, and one of the reasons I think it was not working for me is that I'm doing this as a book group, The Monk by Mathew Gregort Lewis. And this is a Gothic novel written in 1790 something. And it's sort of out of the scope for Gothic Horror Week here because it's too long. We're focusing on short works. But I've read the first 2 chapters, and it is just pure, hilarious trash. There's a lot of things that I'm sure in the 18th century were making those readers' eye pop. It was just so naughty of the author to describe those nuns and what the nuns may be wearing beneath their habits. And there is a scene, I don't want to give too much away, where a robe is revealed. Someone pulls back a robe, and there is a beautiful woman, and the monk, can see some breasts and get all drooly thinking about her breasts, and that he's a monk and he shouldn't be thinking about how lovely her breasts are. Yeah, it's that kind of book. And nuns doing naughty things, and we'll see. There is a curse that one of the nuns put upon the monk because the nun was going to run away with her lover. And the monk was so incensed that he called the abbess, and the abbess is going to give maximum punishment to this nun. And the nun pleaded for mercy, and there was no mercy, so she cursed them. Yeah, it should be fun. Again, I'm only 2 chapters into it. I have the Kindle here. I also have the audiobook. The audiobook is really sort of fascinating because for the most part, it is a male narrator. But then there are some female parts that are narrated by a female narrator, and she sings. Because at one point, a woman is picking up a lute or something, or a harp, and she sings, and it's a poem in the book, but it's supposed to be sung in the book. And the narrator sings this to the harp. Yeah, it's not a lute, it's a harp. And it was just hauntingly beautiful. So there I go, on my big Gothic novel quest. Also, I read a Gothic short story this morning. I got this from Juan, Plagued by Visions, is doing this short story as well. He is going to read it in the original Spanish, if I'm not mistaken, and I read it in English translation. And Horatio Kiraga, he was a Uruguayan short story writer and playwright. This short story was written in 1909, and it starts out a couple, and they're living in a farm of some sort, and they have 4 idiot sons, and that is how they're described in the story, as idiot sons. Probably not the way modern Americans would want to describe mentally disadvantaged children, but they are very upset that they have 4 idiot sons. And then they have a normal daughter, and they dote on that daughter, and they despise their sons. They give it to a servant to take care of, and the servant leaves the idiot sons alone, just facing a wall with no stimulation whatsoever. And what happens? What do these sons eventually do? Well, that is the story of the decapitated chicken. I don't want to get any more into it, but it's a fairly good short story, and it relates to human kindness. I mean, if you treat someone cruelly and without sympathy and any emotion, what is that person or persons going to become? And while this is not a graphic short story by any means, it is very gruesome. And I need to read more by this author. I bought this book in the 80s. I read the first short story in this book. I remember that. That was called The Feather Pillow. And that could also qualify as a horror story. And I won't get into that. But go ahead and see if you can find Kiraga short stories translated into English. If you can find them, they're very good. I have just finished rereading one of my favorite short stories of all time. The author is not known as a horror author, but this short story definitely counts as a Gothic horror story. And the story that I read on my Kindle was A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. And this is a story about a lady known as Miss Emily. She is an eccentric widow living in the South after the Civil War. And the townspeople give her a lot of deference. They don't want to call her crazy, but they let her do what she wants to do. There was a very famous Faulkner character, Colonel Sartoris, and after this lady's father died, he said that the father had lent the town money, and in order for them to pay it back, she never had to pay taxes in the town of Jefferson again. And of course, only Sartoris could come up with a story like that. And only a Southern lady could believe it. And when the townsfolk years later after Sartoris has died, try to collect taxes, she stares at the representatives who've come into her old and musty, dusty home and tells them, "I owe no taxes in Jefferson." And they slink away. Now, when she was younger, she had a beau, and everyone thought she was going to marry this man. But he disappeared without marrying her. And then she became that eccentric widow. And that's all I'm going to say about the story. But it has perhaps one of the most perfect endings to a short story. And it is just a gruesome idea that will shock you. When I first read it the first time in college, I was just like, oh, wow. Now that is a perfect ending to a short story. And that is William Faulkner's Gothic horror story, A Rose for Emily. Now, I'm supposing that a lot of people who read a lot of horror don't read a lot of William Faulkner. And I'm going to suggest that you should go to your library and find a collection of short stories by Faulkner and read A Rose for Emily. Because if you have not read it, that ending is going to floor you. Really, one of the best short stories of all time, in my opinion. Hello, I'd like to finish up Gothic Horror Week with 3 Latin American Gothic horror short stories. And for these, I can 100% blame Juan from Plagued by Visions because he released a video of him reading these 3 short stories. And as someone, as you probably well know, who has listened to very many Audible books, I can say that Juan did a very fantastic job reading these short stories. He even translated the final short story himself from Spanish into English. And while I am no expert at judging translations, it did seem to me a very smooth translation, and I would say a very professional translation. If Juan wanted to work as a reader or maybe a translator, he might be able to do that. But okay, what short stories did he read? The first short story that he read was Thanatopia by Ruben Dario. And this is typical Gothic. A man is narrating a short story, and it's very obvious that this man is nutsy Fagin. He has a thing about corpses, and he tells his story about why he fears and detests corpses. And it had a nice little twist at the ending, and I did enjoy that. And again, that was Thanatopia by Ruben Dario. Now, the second short story is actually a repeat. It is The Decapitated Chicken by Horatio Kiraga. Now, I just did a review of that early this week, and so I won't repeat it. But Juan's reading again was very good. And the final short story was something called Night of the Coffin, Francisco Tario. That is the one that Juan translated himself. And that's a little of an impressionistic piece, I think, very image-driven. And I will leave the link to his video below in mine, and everyone should just watch or listen to his video of these 3 Gothic stories, and I enjoyed those. So that is the end of Gothic horror for me, and we are now going on to cosmic horror, where I'll be reading a novel translated from the Italian and written in the 70s, and the review of it is 21 Days in Turin. I don't quite remember the author, but it is the story of people writing their dreams into a library and not being able to take those back, because once you publish something, it becomes public. And it just should be very interesting. It's been described as a Lovecraftian horror story about the tumult and the political unrest in those days of Italy. So, until next week in Cosmic Horror, thank you for watching. Goodbye.